for example. However, if there is a solution to reduce that killing, we shouldn't do it because one of them is intentional while the other one is not intentional. That makes no sense in my mind. So if instead of killing 1,000 animals, we only kill one, that's worse because the intention was there. Morally, I mean. I cannot see that as true in any universe. And I'm giving you the unintentional death when you're literally poisoning them. So don't come to me and tell me it's unintentional or unintended. When you poison them, that's the intention. End of story. It's not just about combine harvests. It's not about just the pesticides. It's everything. Like your intention is to kill them. Maybe not with the combine harvests. That's fine, but with pesticides and stuff, that's your intention. That's why you put them. It's I don't know where he's going with this argument.
That's often used here is to imagine there's a group of humans who continuously come and eat your crops, and it's impossible to communicate or reason with them such that they stop. At this point, they're a survival threat, since you need food to survive, and so their deaths are either not rights violations or are the types of rights violations that they'd consider permissible. This is in line with a somewhat commonly held view by vegans, and presumably by non-vegans, that our moral obligations change in situations of absolute necessity.
Okay, okay. So, great. So we're comparing again animal lives to human lives, which is a great vegan argument. But you're still killing more humans in one way than the other. I don't see the reasoning.
And survival.
The first consideration we have to make is that we can't be perfect. That's the first consideration we have to make. The second consideration is that we have to eat something, not someone, as we'll come on to in just a minute. So we have to eat something to survive. So our survival is predicated on the consumption of food.
Man, earthing ads really tickles my brain in the wrongest way possible. If every time I hear him speak, I can hear the weasel words. I can hear the deception. Whew, makes my skin crawl.
Now, back in the day when we had to consume animals, you could morally justify doing so out of the fact that we needed to survive. Obviously, in the modern day context, we don't, which is why
They just mentioned that, but that's the thing. Like it's all about the amount of suffering, right?
this question becomes important.
If person A is trying to murder person B, and person B kills them in self-defense, most are going to judge those two individuals very differently. And then some vegans just say animal rights should be a logical extension of human rights.
But I don't follow.
So Vegan Gains has admitted that he kills spiders, for example, not because of self-defense, simply because he does it. Sounds like hypocrisy. How do you say that word? Man, English is hard. Sounds like a hypocrite to me.
Their definition. The definition I follow is one that I created, which is veganism is a logical extension of human rights.
Okay, so now he's trying to redefine veganism because veganism is defined by doing the best you can to reduce human and animal suffering, basically all animal, including humans, suffering. That's big veganism in a nutshell. So now they're trying to change the definition to some cult-like behavior.
Still, some vegans are primarily concerned with exploitation and the commodity status of animals, in particular how those are inflected through psychological and sociological lenses, as expressed here by David C. Arenas.
Using crop death as an excuse to keep exploiting animals stems from a misunderstanding of the vegan stance. It's not about pretending to cause no harm, but about stopping our perception of animals as resources or slaves. Animal exploitation. If the argument was about the number of animal deaths, maybe a trophy hunter could claim to cause less harm by killing a giraffe and feeding the corpses to villagers so that they kill fewer animals and receive money for wildlife preservation. Even non-vegans in a developing nation could claim to cause less harm than vegans in industrialized ones. Veganism is about a collective change of perception, not about body counts. If we can make people truly grasp this, we can avoid all the but vegans also. excuses and make people think vegan cause is feasibly endeavor instead of an impossibility. Okay, so now it's not even about the total suffering of animals. Now it's not even about actual deaths. Now it's not even about causing the least amount of harm. Now it's just about how you feel about it. Basically saying that, oh, causing more suffering is better as long as we are not directly exploiting the animals. By putting the animals in a patio or in a land to graze is more harm, causes is worse psychologically because you're treating them like resources or slaves. This is their argument. So it's better to directly poison them, the environment, the water, the seas, everything else. It's better to do that than to feel like we're exploiting animals. Good reasoning. Good.
Using crop deaths as an excuse to keep exploiting animals stems from a misunderstanding of the vegan stance. It's not about pretending to
Okay,
cause
we got
collective
this
change
already.
of also excuses and make people think of the vegan cause as a feasible endeavor instead of an impossibility. Or in this quote from Gary Francione, it's not just a matter of getting people to stop eating / wearing / using animals. It's a matter of getting them to see the problems with the entire conceptual framework that perpetuates those.
So exactly. So it's not about actual harm. It's about how you feel about it. See the not so subtle change in vegan logic. Absolutely mental.
Behaviors. And of course, this discussion wouldn't be complete without Gary Francione's Gladiator Highway thought experiment, where he has us imagine a gladiatorial coliseum where we pay to see unwilling contestants fight to the death for our benefit. He then asks us to imagine we tear down the coliseum and build a highway. The highway also benefits us and actually, on average, causes the same number of deaths through traffic accidents. Gary then asks, would we equate the unintended and incidental deaths on the road with the deliberate deaths caused to provide entertainment in the stadium?
Okay. This is an interesting thought experiment. So basically what they're saying is that instead of creating a coliseum where people die intentionally, we would create some sort of road where people are gonna die no matter what. This feels like a trick question. Kind of need to think about it for a second. Like, are these really two the same thing? Can we really say that, okay, both of them are equally wrong? I don't think that's the same argument though, because the omnivore argument is okay, we are preventing more deaths, right? So let's imagine that this Colosseum, but it doesn't really work because if one exists, the other one causes much less damage. And again, it's all about intention. When you're poisoning the fields, you are intentionally killing. So it's not just, oh, we're killing them accidentally. That's not what's happening. So why would these two be the same? I feel like this is a very trick, very tricky question. They're equating intentional deaths to unintentional deaths, but that would work if we are just talking about the combines harvesting and killing the animals. But that's not what we're just talking about. We're talking about literally spreading disease and pain towards this huge field of animals. It's not the same thing. I refuse this question. You cannot equate both. Both of them are like it's like destroying the Colosseum to construct an even bigger Colosseum where even more people would die. That's the question. That's the actual question.
But we say that these deaths are all morally equivalent and that we cannot morally distinguish deaths caused in the stadium from deaths caused on the road? Of course not. Now, while all those explanations are fine as far as they go, especially if we're having an outreach conversation on the street, I wanted to see if I couldn't find a more academic and nuanced take in the philosophical.
So you see, this is how vegans try to convince you. They will change the argument slightly. Remember, it started with, do you think a human defending another human? Oh, do you think it's okay to kill people when you're defending your food? You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, it's all about intentional deaths versus unintentional deaths. But what they don't say is that their deaths are as intentional, if not even more, than the omnivore killing. It's ridiculous. How do they think that? Oh, no, we're just causing unintentional deaths. It's all by mistake. It's all by coincidence. Such a such a bad luck that these animals had that they had to cross these fields. No, 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 no. You're literally coming in and killing everything. It's and on purpose. Why do you think you put pesticides? Is it true? Maybe you're not gonna kill any this time. Okay, like if that's your thinking, that's fine.
Literature. I also wanted to find an argument whose origins weren't in veganism, since I think it helps to highlight the fact that, like many things, non-vegans already share many intuitions and values with vegans. And what I found was something called the doctrine of double effect, a moral principle that's been around for centuries. Essentially, and what I found was something called the doctrine of double effect.
Okay, let's try to read this. The doctrine of principle of double effect is often invoked to explain the permissibility of an action that causes serious harm, such as the death of a human being, as a side effect of promoting some good end. According to the principle of double effect, sometimes it is permissible to cause a harm as an intended and merely foreseen side effect or double effect of bringing about a good result, even though it would not be permissible to cause such harm as a means to bringing about the same good end. Okay, give me a second. I need to understand this. Double effect is a good result of an action. Uh, doctrine of double effect. Examples of doctrine of double effect. I'm thinking about this is something that we studied in medical school. Um, mm, because like us as doctors, sometimes, well, I can't call myself a doctor yet, sorry, but in the medical industry, uh, we have to make a decision sometimes. Like if it's the last resort, then it is gonna. Is that what they're saying? Let me see if can I. Uh, yes, it's okay to do that, even though it will have a bad result, as long as the same conditions are met. The thing you're going to do, the action itself, is either inherently good or at least neutral, meaning you cannot do something that is really wrong, even if it has a good outcome. You have to intend for the good result to happen. So it's not when you have good intentions that something goes wrong. It's when you already probably know that something might go wrong, but you are willing to live with that because the uh, good effects outweigh the bads. That makes sense. That makes sense. Although it's again slippery slope, very, very, whew, you know, yeah. Like If I would recommend the medicine to someone, and I know it has some bad side effects, but the good outweigh the bads, that's the doctrine of double effects. I think that's what they mean.
A moral principle that's been around for centuries. Essentially, the doctrine of double effect holds that a higher standard of justification is required for actions that intend harm rather than merely foresee it.
Oh wait, that's something else. But you never intend the harm. I don't think this is true. They're distorting the double effect meaning because the harm is never intentional. It just comes in favor of the good as a result of the good that is coming. This is not the correct definition of it. That's not what it is.
Higher standard of justification is required for actions that intend harm rather than merely foresee it. A common example is the way we'd think about a terror bomber who deliberately kills civilians to invoke fear in their enemy, what we'd call direct harmful agency, versus a strategic bomber who targets a military production facility to destroy its machines of war, knowing that there will be some unintended civilian casualties.
Yeah, exactly. So the bad is not intentional. So the previous definition is not correct. The the goal is the in this case the army compounds, and the death is something that's probably going to come. It's unfortunate, but it's not your goal. The previous definition is wrong. I reject it. It's a bad definition. That's not what it says.
What we'd call indirect harmful agency. Now in this video, I'm actually going to talk about a slightly revised version of the DDE, since this more primitive one runs afoul of something called the closeness problem. But if you want to read about that, check out the links in the description.
Yeah, let's check out the vegan propaganda.
Primitive one runs afoul of something
They're not
called the
going to fool
closeness.
us. Closeness problem. The doctrine of double effect has historically been involved to justify a particular kind of harmful action. This is the action that causes harm as side effects of trying to achieve a good outcome. The doctrine has long been used in military context, for example, distinguishing cases such as following stitching bomb and terror bomb. So basically what he said just now. But that directly contradicts the previous definition that he gave us. And again, like I said, it's a slippery slope. You could basically justify this is basically justify what do you say? Justify the ends, justifying the meanings because of the ends, something like that. Ugh, I hate English. Famous say the ends. Okay, this is basically saying that the ends justify the means, and that's not true. I don't think anyone agrees with that. So I can say that your end goal, which is to be more morally at peace because you're not killing intentionally, does not justify the means of killing millions of smaller animals in favor of one cow.
Problem. But
So
if
I
you
don't
want to read
know.
about that, check out the links in the description.
I don't know where he's going to go with these arguments because I feel like it contradicts him. The ends does not justify the means. Everyone agrees on this. Otherwise, you're going to have a slippery slope, like we just said. And the end goal is the least amount of suffering. That's the end goal. So I don't know. If the end does not justify the means and the end goal is the least amount of suffering, that would be my end goal. But the vegan's end goal would be that the ends of it's not about the number of deaths, it's about how you feel about them, not causing any exploitation. So now we have two different goals. Omnivores are arguing for the least number of deaths, while vegans are arguing for the fifis, for their feelings. Basically, we should not exploit them, even if it causes more deaths. I don't see that as a reasonable argument. Right. In both cases, if the ends don't justify the means, we have to go and observe what means are we going to achieve to do that. And for omnivores, ideal world would be a good life for the animals until their death, which would come, of course, a bit prematurely, but that would be the least amount of harm with the best means to it. I feel that to be true.
description. What I'm going to talk about is Warren Quinn's revised DDE, which originated in this 1989 paper. Quinn's revised DDE distinguishes between 3 rather than 2 types of harmful agency. Summarized well in the 2019 paper, The Doctrine of Double Effect and Killing Animals.
I was hoping this video would be more about science and numbers. Unfortunately, moral and religion is not my biggest strength. I'll admit it right here. So someone smarter than me might be able to see the flaws in my argument, but I would love to discuss it in the comments.
For food. By Quinn's lights, there's indirect harmful agency and then 2 kinds of direct harmful agency: eliminative direct harmful agency and opportunistic direct harmful agency.
Oh, that's a lot of text. I need more coffee. I'm out of coffee. Damn it. Okay. Indirect harmful agency. The agency involves the victim in one or multiple ways. At least one of those involvements leads to the victim being harmed. Okay. The limited direct harmful agency. The agent involves in the victim in one or multiple ways. At least one of those involvements leads to the victim being harmed. The involvements which leads to the victim being harmed are intended. The presence of the victim. Wow, I need more than just a direct. I would love to look at this for like half an hour and try to decide what the hell it's happening. So this one is when we involve when the harm that you cause to a person, that person is brought into the action by you, and he gets hurt by not by what you wanted to happen, but something that happened. So basically, you brought the person, and you're responsible for bringing the person into this action, and the action caused them harm. Not, it's not that you want to harm the person, but you're responsible for bringing her in. That makes sense. Like bringing a child to do something dangerous, like hunting, for example. The child might get hurt. It was not your intention, but you're responsible for bringing the child in. That makes sense. The agent involves the victim in one or multiple ways. At least one of those leads to the victim being harmed. The moments in which leads the victim to being harmed is intended. The presence of the victim is a difficulty. Okay, you bring the person in, for example, for the hunting. Same thing happens. But the action actually causes the person harm. The presence of the victim is a difficulty for the agent and is seen as such by the agent. I just want to understand this last part. So until the D is like when you bring your child to like boxing training, right? You bring the person into the boxing training and the person gets hurt. That was the intention, right? That was the intention of the activity. And then the last sentence, the presence of the victim is a difficulty for the agent and is seen as such by the agent. This part, I don't understand what they mean by that. Maybe someone can help me in the comments. Uh, I don't know. Opportunistic, direct, harmful agency. The agent involves the victim in one or multiple ways. Okay, at least one of those ways leads to the victim being harmed. Fine. The involvement which leads to the victim being harmed is intended. The presence of the victim is an opportunity for the agent and is seen as such agent. Okay, I get it. So in the eliminative directed harmful agency, is when I bring the person, but that person is actually an inconvenience for me. But in the other one, the person being there benefits me, and he's going to argue that that's worse. So because I feel like the person benefits me, okay, I get it. I think I get it.
So what are those? Well, I think it's easiest to demonstrate that by doing a side-by-side product comparison. All three of these products have an agent involving a victim in one or multiple ways, and at least one of those involvements leads to the victim being harmed. Both kinds of direct harmful agency also have the stipulation that the involvement which leads to that harm is intended.
Okay, I'm with you so
The
far.
difference is that with the eliminative flavor, the presence of the victim is a difficulty to the agent.
Okay, so like I said, in this case, you bring the person to the activity. It's not supposed to be harmful, but the person gets harmed. So we're categorizing difference of immorality. In the second case, you bring the person into the activity. The person gets harmed and it's intentionally harmful, and it does not benefit you that the person got hurt. Got hurt. Uh, okay. And in the third case, you bring the person in, the person gets harmed, the activity causes harm, and it's beneficial for you that the person was there. Not that the person was harmed, but that the person was there, indirectly being harmed.
Agent and is seen as such by the agent. Whereas with the opportunistic variety, the presence of the victim is, as the name suggests, an opportunity for the agent
What? Okay.
and is seen as
Yeah.
such. And I know that all sounds complicated, so to make this easier to understand, we're going to get to examples in a second. But first, why is this even important? Well, because,
Understood.
according to Quinn, cases of indirect harmful agency are easier to justify than cases of direct harmful agency. And cases of eliminative
Sure.
direct harmful agency are easier to justify than cases of opportunistic
Again, in this case, to equate it to the veganism, he's gonna say that killing the animals benefits humans. And because we are killing the animals that benefits us, morally, it's worse than killing the animals when it does not benefit us. But the action of killing is the same. Is that really morally better? I find that
direct
hard to
harmful
believe.
agency.
Let's see what they said.
In other words, there's a hierarchy of wrongness when comparing types of harmful agency. Now you might be saying, well, no, I don't agree with that. But before we address that, let's explore some of these examples. So in the classic case of carnism, we kill a pig and eat them. Clearly this satisfies A and B. An agent involves a victim and the victim is harmed. Now the involvement of the victim here is
Stopping for copyright reasons, but yeah.
also very obviously intended, and so condition C is satisfied, making this a type of harmful direct agency. But which type? Well, I'll let Tank and Teal explain. Which form of direct harmful agency is at stake here can be answered by considering whether the presence of the victim poses an opportunity or difficulty for the agent. What exactly constitutes an opportunity or difficulty was not defined by Quinn, and we didn't do so either. The following is a rough, but in our opinion, useful guide for separating the two. If an opportunity for an agent vanishes, that tends to be bad news for the agent. If a difficulty vanishes, that tends to be good news for the agent.
Okay. Okay. So his argument is that killing animals through uh, poison is more justifiable than uh, direct killing, knife, for example. Okay. This one is more justifiable because of intentions, right? Here, we have to kill the animal. That's beneficial to us. There's no way that the animal is coming out alive. But in this case, in his mind, if we could, we wouldn't do it. And because of that, this is better morally, right? Not because the action is worse, but because the intention is. You don't want to use poison. If you could, you would do it without it. But does that matter? Is that really more just? Especially if you're killing more animals? So this one causes more animal deaths, whether intentional or not. And this one causes less animal deaths, whether intentional or not. So is this one even better than this one? Probably not. Like, no way. Like, no way. Like, it doesn't matter how, in this case, it doesn't matter your intention. It matters what your actions are, you know? I don't understand where he's going to go with
With that
this.
in mind, let us take another look at the example. The presence of the pig is an opportunity for the agent. More precisely, it is an opportunity for making meat out of it. Were the pig to suddenly disappear, that would be bad news for the agent. In typical cases, the agent is aware of this fact as well.
Yeah.
Butchers do know that the presence of a pig is
Exactly. So the intention is to kill it and to benefit us. It's a direct killing, for sure.
an opportunity for making meat out of it. Hence, we can conclude that the action in question is an instance of opportunistic, direct harmful agency, because its fourth and final condition is fulfilled. So of the three forms of harmful agency, this is the type we would judge the most harshly. So let's compare that to animals caught in a combine harvester. Again, this clearly satisfies A and B. An agent involves a victim, and the victim is
But there he goes again. It's just the accidental deaths. But that's not what you're doing. You're killing the animals on purpose. At this point, you are still killing the animals on purpose. And if we go back to what's his face, Edward Gaunt, Ed Winters, what's his called, Earthling Ed, said, "Oh, before we couldn't do it because before it would be justified to kill the animals because before we couldn't be vegans. But now that we can, it's not justifiable." But I can still use the same argument here, which is you're still killing the animals directly. It's impossible not to. So you're still killing them, whether you want them or not. So isn't it better to just kill less animals and eat meat?
harmed. But in this case, the involvement of the victim isn't intentional. Like we said before, the combine driver isn't swerving to hit the local fauna. Not only is that not a benefit, it's likely a detriment to the driver's goals and farm equipment.
Agreed.
Thus, condition C isn't satisfied.
I really hope he's going to talk about poison at some point. I don't know if he's going to talk about it or not. Oof, that's a long dose. He's going to talk about the environmental issues. I cannot wait. Okay. It doesn't
And we
seem
have
like
an
he's going to
instance
talk
of
about
indirect
poison.
harmful agency. And of the three forms of harmful agency, this is judged the least harshly. But the more interesting and thorny case is that of pesticides used to kill animals like
Wait.
insects least harshly. Harmful agency. And of the three forms of harm, is that not
What?
a benefit? It's likely a detriment to the driver's goals and farm equipment. Thus, condition C isn't satisfied.
Got it. So, yeah, in the case of the coal mine harvests, no. But in the case of poisoning, yes.
And we have an instance of indirect harmful agency. And of the three forms of harmful agency, this is judged the least harshly. But
If you if you compare it one to one, maybe. But if it's like a million deaths here and one death here, would you really
and of the
justify
three
it?
forms of harmful agency, this is judged the least harshly. But the more interesting and thorny case is that of pesticides used to kill animals like
Oh, there you go.
insects and rodents. As with the combine harvester, this scenario satisfies both A and B. But unlike the combine harvester, the involvement which leads to the victim being harmed is intended. Monsanto didn't accidentally spend millions of dollars on R&D to develop an insecticide,
Let's
and
see
the
his
farmer didn't
arguments.
accidentally
I want to see the argument. No. Oh, because it's not good for us?
spray the
It's
insecticide
better.
on their crops. Thus, C is satisfied, and so we're working with a type of direct harmful agency.
Okay.
But unlike the killing of the pig, the insects or rodents do not represent an opportunity, but instead a difficulty. Which is to say, if the insects or rodents suddenly vanished, this
Would you say the same thing about using bees to pollinate your plants, and because of that you're killing them? Oops, 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 vegan logic, oops, oops. You know what I mean? Like, so omnivores have to deal with opportunistic, direct, harmful agency. No chance to go around it, right? Vegans have to deal with all the other three. You know, you use bees to pollinate. That's already the presence of the victim is an opportunity. So how now are you going to justify your lovely oat plants and avocados and all that? Not to mention the avocados that are killing humans. Not to mention the cashews that are hurting humans. Like it's so like in the vegan world, it's so easy to see. Oh, we just don't kill a cow, and oh, unfortunately, we kill a couple of mice in the field. What's it? But that's not what you're doing. You're killing millions of bees to pollinate your plants. You're killing hundreds, if not thousands, of animals with your combine harvests. You're killing millions, if not billions, of insects. You're killing thousands of fish with your poison. Is it really that better? I mean, I don't see it.
would be good news for the agent, e.g. the farmer. And so we have an instance
I
of
don't see it.
eliminative direct harmful agency, which we should judge more harshly than indirect
And again, if you're killing 1 million here, 10,000 here, and 1 here, which one would you prefer?
harmful agency, but less harshly than opportunistic direct
I
harmful
feel-
agency.
I
Now you
feel
may be saying, well, that's
differently.
all well and good that we can slice and dice deaths and actions in such a nuanced way. But I never signed off on the hierarchy of wrongness outlined by Quinn. But didn't you? At least maybe a little bit? Let's think back to that trolley problem.
Some of the parts of the
Okay, he's gonna go back to this thing. I'm gonna try to go a bit quicker now, just to see if we can get over this part. I think I've proven how his doctrine fails. Uh, it's very easy. You can let nature run its course and uh, kill one, or you can intervene and kill 10,000. Like it's crazy. In his mind, that's the problem, right? But in the omnivore's mind, we are helping the animals, yes, by killing them directly, but by not killing billions of them indirectly. And this is what vegans don't understand. It's not just about the combine harvests. It's not about just the poison. It's not just about the bees that you use to pollinate the plants. It's all of them together. It's Don't forget the mines of sulfur that you have to do in order to create those poisons. Don't forget about the pollution that you cause, the human harm that you cause by taking those pollutants and minerals and non uh, biological manure, plant growth, plant feeds. It's incredible the amount of the devastation, the destruction that veganism without the help of animals causes is an absurdity. It's not just about, oh, the poor combine harvest mice, or oh, the poor poison. You're causing so much damage to the earth. It's unbelievable.
fake people flowing to my
I'm gonna speed up the video just to see if we can skip the rest of the argument, because as we can see, it fails completely.
Remember switch and footbridge? Did you answer differently for those questions? Did one of them give you more pause than the other? Well, as Professor of Philosophy Andy Lamy points out in his book Beauty and the Beast, anyone who's taught the trolley problem knows it is common for a large majority of the class, routinely over 90% in my experience, to recommend pulling the lever in the first scenario. In the second scenario, it is more common for a smaller majority to opt not to push the wrestler off the bridge. This pair of responses is inconsistent if consequences are all that matter. After all, in both dilemmas, the choice involves 1 death or 5. Note that here he describes footbridge as wrestler in his book. Now you might be noting that if we were to classify switch using Quinn's revised DDE, switch would be a case of indirect harmful agency, the type we judge least harshly. As Lamy says, the harm that comes to the person on the side track is is not the means by which the agent, in either case, brings about her goal. In Lever, the 5 people on the main track would live, even if the single person was not on the side track. Whereas Footbridge
Yes.
would be classified as opportunistic.
If you guys want to watch the video and slow it down just to see the rest of the argument, it's up to you guys. Go for it. But I think I've debunked it clearly. His simplification of the problem does not include all the vegan deaths in all cases at all. Just the amount of destruction that the sulfur mining causes is unbelievable. Not just to the environment, but to humans as well. If you don't know about it, like it's crazy. Let me just give you guys a quick video. I've seen it not that long ago. Like, just check out these videos about sulfur mining in Indonesia. Absolutely mental. These people, they don't live past 50. If that. I don't think they live past 40. Crazy. If you want to know about avocado deaths, avocados are destroying the planet. Enjoy. Bees are going extinct. Enjoy. What else? Oh, Mac the Vegan. Oh, I need to watch this video later. Cashews hurt humans. Oh, I don't know how to write. Humans. Why you should think twice about eating cashews? Enjoy, because it's unbelievable to see these people's hands. Like,
allergic reactions as a
it's incredible. Like, enjoy your cashews, yeah, guys. Enjoy your cashew dairy, cashew cheese. Fucking vegans, man. The amount of animal and human suffering that vegans cause, mind blowing.
Direct harmful agency, the kind we judge the most harshly. The involvement of the victim is intended, and were the victim to disappear, that would be a bad thing for the agent since they couldn't use them to stop the train. So if you said you'd pull the lever but wouldn't push the person off the footbridge, it's possible you already align with Quinn's revised DDE. And if you want to imagine a case of eliminative direct harmful agency here, imagine a trolley is again traveling towards 5 people. Classic trolley. And you need to pull a switch on a bridge to stop it. But there's a person standing in front of the switch, and the only way to pull the switch in time to stop the train is to knock the person off the bridge, killing them. The person is a difficulty for you here rather than an opportunity, as in the footbridge case. Now, of course, that might not be the only reason you wouldn't push the person off the bridge. For instance, work by Joshua Green seems to suggest
I don't want to skip the whole thing because they still might go give a good argument. So I'm waiting. But again, if you guys want to slow it down, go
the
for it.
personal force nature of the pushing seems to make people less likely to choose this option.
And the results show that actually what really seems to be doing the work is this personal force stuff.
But there's one more trolley problem to consider. I know, I swear to God, this is the last one. And that's the loop scenario. In loop, you again find yourself watching a trolley hurtling towards 5 people. And again, if you pull the switch, it'll divert the train to another track where it'll hit one person instead. The difference is that the track loops back around to the 5 people. And the reason diverting it saves them is because hitting the one person slows the trolley down. You can think of it like a blending of the other 2 scenarios. So we still have a case of opportunistic direct harmful agency, but we remove the personal force variable. Why is that important? Well, because we have a large survey spanning 42 countries and 70,000 participants who are asked about what decision they'd make in each of these scenarios. The results, 81% of participants endorse sacrificing the one person in the switch scenario, compared to 72% in loop, and just 51% in footbridge. So if the personal force hypothesis was the only thing at play here, we'd expect switch and loop to have the same result, since neither uses personal force and both sacrifice one person to save 5. But that's not what we see. We see that both instances of opportunistic direct harmful agency read as less permissible than the instance of indirect harmful agency. This seems to suggest that only some of the reason for this higher rate of permissibility comes from personal force, while the rest could be explained by something else, and that something else could be the moral intuitions outlined in Quinn's revised DDE. Now, why did I say sort of a second ago? Because while there was a difference between switch and loop, the effect size was just 0.1, which is a relatively small effect size. But also note that this pattern of being more willing to pull the switch than push the person holds across many cultures, indicating this is
He's trying to justify the new DDE availability. He can justify it all he wants. It still does not put veganism into the better light. Because, like I said, veganism affects all 3 forms of destruction, not just the third one, as he was saying. So unless he revises that, he doesn't have
probably
an
something deep in our
argument.
psychology. In fact, the authors note that this dataset reveals a universal pattern of support for the switch loop footbridge spectrum that is suggestive of a common underlying cognitive structure. Also, just to give you a taste of how complex this might get, here's Joshua Green talking about some of the paradoxical research in this area.
One possibility of what's really going on here is something that Mark alluded to earlier. This is a paper done with Mark and Tyree Cushman, that what really matters here is body contact. And if that's
Let me slow down this part, because it's not him talking, it's someone else.
right, then we can look at a third intermediary case. So here, in this case, which we'll call the footbridge switch case, you're dropping the guy through a trap door, but you're right next to him. So you're not physically far away. So you just go, and he goes down. So here, is it about spatial distance, this comparison, or is it about contact? And consistent with Mark's result, it seems to be more about contact. It's not about it being far away. It's about whether you're touching the person or whether or not you're hitting the switch. But there's another wrinkle, which Mark alluded to earlier. Even here, there are two differences. Here, when you're using the switch, not only are you not touching the person, you're also not doing something a little more subtle. You're not using your muscle force to directly impact the person. And if we want to get at that variable, we can use a case which I'll call the footbridge pole case, where now you're pushing the guy with a pole, you're not touching him, but you're using your muscles to directly impact the person. And the
So I love the trolley problem. I love philosophy, and if you guys want to hear like some really cool trolley problems, I recommend this guy, Alex O'Connor. He used to be a vegan, but he's not anymore because veganism sucks. And he has these amazing trolley problem videos, which I really like. Yeah, so he has these trolley problem memes. Some of them are hilarious. I definitely recommend these videos. They're really funny, and I like his argumentation a lot. Uh, I think Alex is quite a smart person that got involved with veganism when it was fooling everyone, even myself. And he is still like a vegan supporter, but now he eats animal products. Uh, I'm sure you all know who it is. But the trolley problems, I think they're really cool. Feel free to watch it.
results show that actually what really seems to be doing the work is this personal force stuff. Now, another important factor that people have been talking about for as long as people have been playing around with trolley cases is the distinction between means and a side effect. So in this case here, our friend Joe needs to divert the trolley by getting across this footbridge to the switch. But unfortunately, there's somebody on the switch. And on the way to the switch, he is going to, as a side effect, byproduct, collateral damage, knock this person off the bridge and to his death. Now, what's interesting about this case is that you got all the personal force in the world. This is not hitting a switch from far away, your body directly impacting the person. And yet here people say that mostly say that this is okay. And what this tells us is that the effect of personal force depends on this other factor. So there's an interaction between this personal force factor and this factor of what's sometimes I think misleadingly called intention, but harming somebody as a means versus harming somebody as a side effect. In fact, this is not statistically different from the good old switch case where you're far away and it's a side effect and everything else.
Is still trying to justify the double effect doctrine.
Interestingly, if you just tweak this case a little bit so that as the guy's running across, he has to bump, push the guy out of the way, the acceptability of that action goes way down. Something about having a specific targeted body movement towards moving the person in a way that's going to harm him seems to have a big effect. So again, it seems to be about these factors in interaction.
And even if you don't find the trolley cases convincing, think back to the terror and strategic bomber.
That we already debunked.
Did you see any moral difference between those two scenarios when the personal force variable is absent or equalized? Now look, maybe you aren't particularly deontic in nature and lean more towards consequentialist reasoning. That's fine because the rest of the reasons are going to lean in that direction. But either way, having familiarity with arguments from both perspectives is going to benefit your understanding. And if you're a vegan activist, probably your activism. Because in these trolley problems, if we take sacrifice the one to generally be more indicative of consequentialism, and don't sacrifice the one to be more indicative of deontology or virtue ethics, then we can see people have a broad range of normative beliefs. And it's pretty hard to shift someone's underlying normative ethical framework. So if you can make a convincing case in their own framework, all the better. Also, I just want to flag that I don't necessarily personally endorse all
Stopping for copyright reasons, but yeah.
the arguments in this video. Because in this video, I'm trying to do two things. One, show why a particular vegan isn't necessarily a hypocrite for not eating grass-fed cows, even if it would cause less deaths. And two, present cases
Failed. Present cases to persuade a broad range of normative beliefs. Failed.
that could be persuasive to a broad swath of normative beliefs. Charges of hypocrisy are usually going to hinge on what the individual believes and their particular normative framework, not whether you find their framework.
Whenever someone starts to use complicated words to explain themselves, be careful. Like normative beliefs and all that, like they're useless words. What they believe. Whenever they try to give you a word salad, be careful. They're probably trying to hide something.
Convincing. If there's a Christian who thinks that homosexuality is a sin, and that Christian also hooks up with people of the same sex, they're being a hypocrite.
He was asked to talk to Goodman in May of 2016 about rumors the married Goodman was gay and lying about his sexuality. Goodman is a staunch conservative and an adversary to the LGBTQ community.
But that hypocrisy is independent of whether you personally think homosexuality is a sin. For instance,
No, the person is an hypocrite. End of story. Whatever someone else believes or not, that's not
I
in question.
don't, so I wouldn't think that they're doing anything inherently wrong.
Being a being a hypocrite is something that is inherently wrong because you're being a liar, you know, in an indirect way, but you are lying. You're trying to stop others to do something that you are doing. Uh, you know what I mean? Like whether you believe or not in homosexuality or something else like killing, for example. If I say, "Oh, killing is bad," and I go off and killing, whether you the killing is wrong, of course, uh, but me being a hypocrite is also deceptive, and that's something that is wrong.
But I would think they're being a hypocrite. Likewise, the doctrine of
Yes.
double effect might not personally resonate with you, but that's irrelevant to a charge of hypocrisy so long as the vegan in question sincerely holds that belief.
Even if whether I believe it or not, it doesn't matter. Vegans do not fall into the category of just the first and second part of that belief. They also fall into the third category. And even if they didn't, even if we ignore the bees, the human suffering, all that causes the intentional harm and the beneficial parts, we still have a million animals versus one or two deaths. Like you can't really justify that. I not with that belief at least.
All right, intermission over. What are these other reasons? Well, first, let's talk about what I'm calling the local maximum issue. The eating grass fed cow strategy might risk finding ourselves on what I'd call a local maximum. Even if it is the case that there's less incidental deaths in grass fed cows, no matter what, at the very least, we still have to kill all those cows. So, regardless of innovation, our
Okay.
floor is still the deaths of all those cows. Whereas in the crop scenario, with enough innovation, we could take those deaths down to zero, or near zero. But if we push
No.
society towards eating
Possible.
grass-fed cows, we'll create a valley of friction, both psychological and structural, for then giving that up in the future. When
Oh, what an idiot. Oh, what an idiot. Okay. So his argument is even if we are killing more animals, even if we are being worse now, we should still be vegans because that will push innovation in order to reach a nirvana. This is the nirvana fallacy. Sorry, a nirvana is an ideal thing. The nirvana fallacy, what says is that you're justifying your beliefs based on a possible but not yet occurring uh, better uh, result. So the nirvana fallacy is a logical fallacy in which one assumes that a perfect solution exists to a given problem and rejects more realistic alternatives in favor of it. It is a combination of wishful thinking and black and white thinking, where an argument assumes that the solution should be rejected because some part of the problem still exists after the solution is applied. Sorry. The fallacy is based on faulty reasoning, where an argument assumes that a solution should be rejected because some part of the problem still exists after the solution is applied. So his argument is that we should give up grass-fed cows because that kills the least amount of animals, because that's creating friction to a perfect solution, which is no death crop farming. He's probably going to talk about uh, vertical farming. It's now the new argument, but they don't understand that vertical farming still needs plant food like inorganic manure. So where are you going to get that from? You're going to have to destroy the environment for it. Uh, you still have to keep weather under control. You still have to get the water there. So you're going to have to spend so much in materials and energy in order to create that. Like, oh, we can put solar panels. Okay, but then you have to build all those solar panels. You have to build all that equipment. You have to keep it steady. Like their nirvana, this goal is at the moment unachievable. So why not go with the more realistic endeavor right now? Keep researching, keep trying to get to that point. I want to see what he's going to say, but I'm sure it's going to be the vertical farming bullshit. That oh my god, they're so. Look, I'm insulting the vegans, but I was there as well. I was an idiot as well. I also believed all their lies. You know, it's incredible.
when instead we could start moving away from it right now, and more aggressively pour resources into developing crop death reduction technology and things like vegan
Called it. Vertical farming. I look, I'm in their mind. I know how these idiots think. I love it. I love it.
farming that reduce both direct deaths and crop deaths. And we'll dive into those specific innovations in more detail in the longer video I'm doing with Vegan Gaze and Chris Hines. Think of it like this. You want to
Oh,
move
there's gonna be another video. Kill me now, please. Oh, I already saw that there's another video. It's just I thought it'd be something else, maybe. This one here. It's about dog rights, so I didn't think. Oh, there's gonna be another video.
out of your small town for opportunities in the big city. The best city for you is Chicago, but Seattle isn't too bad, and you can make the move there now rather than waiting a few months to go to Chicago. So you do, and it turns out Seattle
Yeah, so again, the Nirvana argument is bullshit. Like in his mind, we can achieve this amazing paradise where no animals are killed. Unfortunately, that's wishful thinking. You don't live in a real.
is better than your small town, so you start laying down roots, making friends, furnishing your apartment, etc. with a plan that you want to move to Chicago one day. But that day never comes. Every time you consider it, you think how hard it'll be to leave your new friends, or what a pain it'll be to move your furniture across the country, or how there'll be a learning curve for Midwest culture.
Hey, they said they were going to the Twin Cities.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, is that useful to you?
Oh, you betcha, yeah.
Yeah.
And you will have found yourself stuck on a local maximum. Or here's another example. Children with abusive parents may develop unhealthy.
This is not called the local maximum. This is called. I forget the name.
Coping mechanisms for dealing with the trauma. Those coping mechanisms protect them in the moment, and in some sense, in the short term, they're better than not having them. But there's usually healthier ways of dealing with those emotions. They just often take more time to cultivate. And once you've got an established trauma response, it's harder to develop a healthier habit than if you'd never developed the response in the first place.
This has another name. Oh, I don't remember the name. It's not sunk cost fallacy. It's something of opportunity. I can't remember.
Imagine Mike, a 30-year-old Netflix binging alcoholic who turned to drinking in his teens to numb himself to the reality of living with an abusive father. He's still got demons from back then, but every time he throws on Bridgerton and has a margarita, he feels a little bit better. Now we know if he dropped the drinking, sought
Talking of personal experience? Question mark?
therapy and started an exercise program, his physical and mental health would probably be better than they are now. In other words, they would be at an overall higher maximum. The problem is, in addition to starting 2 new habits, he'd also have to break 2 addictive old ones. In this
Sorry, there you go. So, like I was saying, props to this guy. This guy explains things in a very well documented way. You can clearly see that he puts a lot of thinking into these videos, which I appreciate. But he starts from a very faulty base. His base starts wrong, and then he builds on top of that, and he doesn't realize that everything is already collapsed right here. Like, his starting point is terrible.
transition period, he'd likely feel worse, and there'd be a ton of physical and mental friction standing in the way of his changes. So however hard it is to start therapy and exercise for the average person, it's even harder for Mike because he's got to break away from these unhealthy entrenched habits. In other words, his entrenched local maximum. In the same way, this eat grass-fed cow strategy might leave us with the behavioral friction of escaping the habitual and addictive nature of eating animal flesh, the mental friction of not seeing animals as mere commodities, the logistical friction of moneyed interest and their attendant lobbyists and disinformation campaigns to
This gentleman, he gets a lot of flack from vegans because he defends very well the anti-vegan position. They claim, oh, he gets money from meat companies and all that. And I'm like, yeah, that's his job. His job is literally to go to these people and prevent them for effing up even more. And people pay them for that. Thank God there's people like this. You know what I mean? Dr. Mitlaner. Oh, forget his name. Stuart Mitlaner? Sorry. Uh, I can't remember his first name. Yeah, he gets money from the meat industry because he's responsible for keeping them in check. Vegans actually should invest in more people like this because they're the ones keeping these companies from like completely factory farming, which we are all against. And like we don't want the animals to suffer more than they need to. Like it's crazy.
maintain the new grass-fed status quo, and on and on. And then, of course, we've got the environmental issue. Grass-fed cows
Can't wait. Can't wait for the methane argument. Whew. Let me get ready for this. I love it. I love this one. Wait for it.
aren't great for climate change, and climate change is currently killing and will continue to kill humans and animals. Climate change will increase the chance and/or severity of wild
People that don't believe in climate change, I'm one that believes in climate change, and I think that humans are the cause of it. Uh, I think climate change is undeniable. If you see the temperatures, the average temperatures rising, it's crazy. Whether it is caused by humans or not, I think that's where the discussion lies. Personally, I was on the other side saying that humans were not responsible, but now I'm like I've seen the proof and I think I've changed my mind. Like this gentleman, Thunderfoot, if you don't know him, he's great. Thunder. I think you're right about that. Dr. Paul Mason, he is great. He's a no bullshit kind of person. Like, if you're wrong, he's gonna tell you and he's gonna prove it. And he makes these amazing videos about global warming that completely changed my mind. I never really searched into it. I just believed whatever people told me. And at first, I believed that yes, global warming is happening, but it was just a natural kind of thing because how are we humans responsible for it? But I've seen enough proof to determine like we are very very likely responsible for what's causing the amount of uh, greenhouse gases that we release to the atmosphere. There's no way it's not causing some sort of change. But sorry, this was a rant because of global warming. If you don't believe in global warming, there's not much I can do. I would say check out this guy's videos because they were eye opener to me. But that's not the point of this video.
wildfires, heat waves, flooding, droughts, hurricanes, ocean acidification, etc. Do we think a massive wildfire like this kills very many animals? And not only will all those things cause excess deaths,
Between 2000 and 2000.
So this guy is arguing that cows are responsible for global warming, causing all these deaths. Imagine how enclosed-minded you have to be. Like you only see like all the problems in life, all human problems, all could be resolved by people going vegan. Imagine how good that lifestyle is that you can be just as ignorant as you want. You know? Where's the meme? No, I cannot find the meme. There you go.
Can I ask you guys something? How are you both so happy? Doesn't it weigh on you that the world might be ending? Can I tell him our secret? Come here. Come here. We're
These are vegans.
very stupid.
This vegans remind me of these two guys. You know what I mean? Like, there's only one solution to everyone's problems. I can't wait. Let me see. Let me see the arguments.
2019, South Asia saw over 110,000 heat-related excess deaths a year.
they'll make life increasingly difficult and miserable for those of us who are still alive, particularly the most marginalized among us who have the least ability to marshal defenses against these changes. Food shortages, water shortages, migrant crises, increased international conflict, worse air quality will generally be not super chill, to say the least. Alright, but I thought grass-fed cows were supposed to be better for the environment. Well, without going too deep, this visual does a pretty good job.
Okay, so most of these carbon footprints, let's go over this argument for the millionth time. Most of these carbon footprints from cows and all that bullshit, comes from the emissions that cows make. Okay? So, if you know the law of conservation of mass, mass of any one element at the beginning of a chemical reaction is equal to the mass of the element at the ends. Okay, so basically meaning that mass is neither destroyed, it doesn't disappear, it's just transformed. Okay, so let me bring out the paints because my drawings are amazing. So this is the Earth and this is the atmosphere. Okay, if this is the amount of carbon CO2 in the atmosphere and on the soil combined, whatever you do here, this is not going to change. This is going to stay the same, right? You know, it will increase and it will decrease. But in total, after 100 years, after 200 years, this one cannot change because you cannot really change the amount of carbon that's in the whole system. There is a problem. What if you bring carbon from the outside, or in this case, from the undergrounds, in? And this is what humans do with oil and gas. We take it from underground, we burn it, and it goes in the air. And because it takes millions of years to get back down, it stays in the environment, it stays overground. So, very simple methods. This is what's causing global warming. This is what's causing gas and uh, CO2 to increase. Okay? So, the oil and the gas that were before on underground, they are now overground. That's creating the greenhouse gas effect. And because we are not putting it back underground, it stays here. So we could have, if this wasn't a thing, we could have 1,000 cows. We can have 10 million cows extra in the environment, pooping and farting and burping all the way, all day. And yes, it would increase for a couple of years the level of carbon dioxide. But after that, there's a limit because there's not enough carbon dioxide to keep increasing the value. So the value would increase slightly, but then it would maintain. What we see is that the carbon in the atmosphere is going up, 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 up. So are the number of cows increasing? Let's see. Number of cattle in the world through the years. uh, I'm trying to find a more. This is just for the US. Let me see if I can find our our data. Uh, is there a total number? Okay. Uh, so the number in Brazil is increasing. The number of India is quite steady, and everyone else is quite steady. Do I have a total? Table? I wish I had a total worlds. Okay. Number of cattle. 500 million animals in the past 80 years. Methane tracker. Agriculture, natural energy. So energy is basically the same as agriculture, which is great. Is there a... I need a chart to see the evolution. Charts. This is Wikipedia. I'm not a big fan of Wikipedia, but let's check it out. Cool. So, these are the locations, and as you can see, it's rising. So, whoop, it seems, there we go, that as the cows rise, the methane is rising. Therefore, case closed, cows cause climate change, right? But if we think about, again, my beautiful drawing, where do the cows got this methane from? Where do the cows got this carbon from? They got it from plants. They got it from the air. So if the carbon that's now in the air was in the cows that ate the plants that took it from the air, then how is more methane and carbon dioxide now in the air than before? Even if we take into account the increased number of cows, the carbon, it's still the same in the whole system. It's very interesting to see, I would say. So, could it be that it's the cows causing this problem, or the oil and the gas that we're taking from the grounds and pumping into the atmosphere? You know? Let's see this graph. Here lies the problem. Agriculture and waste, uh, biomass, biofuel, wetlands, other national environments. These things don't matter. And they don't matter because whatever it's being pumped into the atmosphere right now, it was not in the atmosphere before. Or I should say, it was in the atmosphere before. The major problem is this thing, fossil fuel and production and use. This is the major cause. There's no other possible cause for the increase in methane and carbon dioxide. Simply put, because all of these were part of the system, a closed, not really, but closed system. We now are adding to the atmosphere all this. And again, if you look at the Dr. Mason's video, it's not just a little. We are adding a lot. We are adding a lot. You know? Look at that. Since 1850, the increase in billion tons of, I believe this is carbon dioxide. I can't remember the emissions. Huh? Let me just mute it for our benefit. Okay. This is carbon emissions, CO2. And this is what's happening. Okay. In Europe is going down, but in the rest of the world is going up and a lot. You see, Europe, the energy consumption is going down. The we are finally going below, but we are going below because we are dependent on others to produce it for us, basically. But yeah, the argument that animals produce carbon dioxide, yes, they produce, yes, they cause methane emissions, yes, methane is better, is worse for the environment, but it doesn't matter because the matter that is now in the atmosphere causing problems is the one that was underground. Okay, I hope. I'm sorry, this is not very simple to. I'm sorry, this is not more concise. I just press record. I've tackled this argument so many times. It's ridiculous, man. They don't understand that this is part of a cycle, the methane and the CO2 cycle. It's part like the water. Like the water that we use is not spent. It goes in the atmosphere and then it goes back to nature. You know what I mean? Uh, of course, if we take way too much water, it's going to run out. You have to wait for those resources to refill. But for carbon dioxide and methane, yes, animals would be a way to reduce it temporarily, such as planting trees would be a way to reduce carbon dioxide temporarily. However, it's not the solution because the problem is not the lack of trees or the excess of animals. The problem is the fossil fuels that we keep burning every day, tons and tons.
Debunking that. What this basically shows is that even the least impactful beef is still worse in terms of GHG emissions than just the average emissions for nuts, peas,
Oh, what an idiot.
beans, and tofu. And if we look here, we see even the best beef produces many times more GHG emissions than even just average peas on a per gram of protein basis. And that's not even considering the truly fair comparison of grading it against the least impactful nuts, beans, peas, and tofu, many of which are actually carbon negative. Also,
Debatable, you know, debatable. Some of them are carbon negative for sure, but you can say the same thing about cows and cattle contributing to more greenlands. Holistic agriculture is what it's called. I've talked about it in my first video. Feel free to watch it.
you might be wondering what these weird curves are. Well, the height of the curve represents the amount of production globally with that specific footprint. So we can see even when
Okay, we're going to skip this argument as well because, like I said, the carbon produced by these animals should not be accounted for the total emissions. It's about how much fossil fuels you burn while taking care of this. And ideally, you would burn less fossil fuels by carrying more nutritious animal foods that doesn't just provide you with protein, but everything else that you need. This is what these things don't account for. They also don't account for the fact that, you know, beef, lamb, and other cattle can contribute for holistic agriculture, which again, they don't count. The
we
vegans are
compare
very.
the good beef, the height is very low. That means hardly any production actually has that footprint. Whereas when we look at the averages of the plant-based sources, the curve is quite high, meaning a large percentage have that footprint. And when we look at nuts, a ton of the production is carbon negative, not just a little bit. So it's not just that the low end of cow flesh is little chance it's going to be this good cow flesh. And grass-fed cows actually offer some unique disadvantages. But I'll let ecologist Nicholas Carter explain.
And does the methane, does it differ based on if they're corn grain-fed versus grass-fed?
Yeah, I mean, that's what makes it even more deceiving is typically if they're grass-fed, they'll emit more methane.
Why is that?
Again, the methane did just pop up out of an existence. The methane or the carbon was in the plants that they ate, or they had to convert it, I should say. But after it goes in the atmosphere, in about 10 years, it goes back on the ground. So it makes no sense. What there's like the harm that they cause, even if it's true, it would be in the atmosphere for 10 years only. And then we'll go back to the ground, and then the cycle begins anew. So
and there's two reasons for this. One is when you're feeding cows grass, it's going to take them longer to get to slaughter weight. So they're living slightly longer. So that's going to be
which is good for them, I guess.
A bit more methane in that case. But also, you know, their native vegetation to eat would be like grass, but it's still a bit more fibrous. So the more fibrous diet will make them belch a bit more. A lot of
Okay, maybe that's true, I'm not sure.
The initial claims around methane being biogenic and methane not mattering when it comes from
Hey, that's what I said.
animals, and when it comes from in particular cattle and dairy herd, that originates from Jason Roundtree's study, which was then picked up from Sacred Cow and this documentary and book, and they just run with it and they say methane from cows doesn't matter, but we're seeing it
For the environmental problem, no, it doesn't matter. You can still reduce it, of course, but you wouldn't cause a dent. The real problem is fossil fuels. End of story.
from space. We're observing that it does matter, and we're seeing that signature in space. And then this paired with the
seeing that signature in space. Sorry. I need to find. I thought the cattle was going down. Is this the same one? Wait, US Statistica. So, wait. Number of cattle worldwide. But the numbers are going down for the past 11 years. Started at 1 billion and it's now at 900 million. Is that correct? Am I reading this wrong? Number of cattle amount to up to 940 million heads. So in here it says 940 million heads. But here it says total. Is this the total? $1.5 billion. Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. And this one. Is this just cows, maybe? Uh, According to these graphs, the number of cattle is going down, but according to this one, the number of cattle is going up. Wait, 2012. $2021. Let me see very quickly. So, meat production, but that includes all meats probably. Wait, this is cattle. Does this include all meats? Wait a minute. Poultry, pig, camel, horse, sheep, beef, buffalo. It went down, but then it went back up. So this was 2018, 19. So between 2018 and 2020, let's say, yeah, but all, was it because of COVID? Maybe. That makes sense. Poultry is really thinning out. I thought maybe pig is going up. Okay, so beef production. But beef production does not really include number of cows, though. So if this is true, then I rest my case. Cows are going down, methane is going up. Why would they would completely deny the vegan argument, right? Is this just the United States? No, worldwide. Why are the numbers so different? Where are these guys getting this source from? Show source. Oh, okay. Like that's my question. Like the methane emissions is going up constantly, right? Where's no wait, it's here. There wasn't even a change during the COVID times when animals went down. Shouldn't there be a slight decrease in the? It keeps going up. So between so during this area, there was a very big reduction in animals. There should have been a reduction in methane, but there wasn't. How do vegans justify this?
Different reports that are out saying 32% of all methane comes from cattle. So
That's huge.
if we reduce all methane,
what
paired with the different reports that are out saying 32% of all methane comes from cattle.
Imagine being so wrong and so stupid. Of course they don't give sources, but that 32%, I think it uh, was also accumulated by the whole agricultural industry, and this includes the fossil fuels burned to make that cattle leave and go to the supermarket, which is a little bit off because vegans also claim that they want to use renewable energy. So why would we use the same argument for meat production?
So
That's huge.
if we reduce this quickly, we're going to see atmospheric effects quickly because it only lasts in the atmosphere for about 10 years.
Exactly. It only lasts for 10 years. So if the animals are not being increasingly like it makes no sense. If it only lasts 10 years, why would it stay in the atmosphere then?
You're probably using more land. You're going to produce less.
Look at the weasel word. Probably using more lands. Yeah, but if the land that you use is unusable for everything else, then what does it matter?
Milk, and as using more land, you're going to displace more biodiversity likely, or prevent rewilding of some sense. And when
again, there are certain areas in the world where only grass can grow, if that.
When cows eat more grass, I think it's very important to understand too, the more fibrous diet the cows eat, the more methane is produced.
Look at his face. Oh. Sorry, that's mean. I shouldn't be attacking him personally.
There's been some studies that showed as much as 4 times as much methane is produced with grass-finished beef or more pasture for dairy versus the alternative. So
would love to see the sources, but even if it's true, again, it doesn't matter. That carbon was in the atmosphere before. If it didn't cause problems there, then it's not going to cause problems now.
This is not
because oh no, it wasn't in the atmosphere, it was in the plants. Yeah, but the plants die and then it goes to the atmosphere anyway.
the way to go in that sense. So in that sense, it's a lot worse.
So soy milk would be a better option from
No.
an environmental perspective
Wrong.
than the most regeneratively produced, most biodynamic, most
Absolute nonsense. Absolute bullshit.
organic, local, farm next door dairy milk.
By far, not even close.
By far, you're wrong. Absolutely stupid.
There you go.
Also, contrary to what many people believe, every vegan doesn't care about non-human animal deaths to the total exclusion of absolutely everything else. In the same way that many non-vegans don't care about human deaths to the total exclusion of absolutely everything else.
Don't care about the little guy.
Remember, most vegans and non-vegans alike still drive cars despite
Weird arguments, but okay.
knowing there will be thousands of traffic fatalities every year. If eating
It's not just that. If you're a vegan but you drive a car, you're probably causing, not probably, you're definitely causing more damage than someone who's just eating local grass-fed beef. 100%. If you are using fossil fuels, you're causing more damage than anything else. End of story.
Eating crops compared to eating grass-fed cows caused 1,000,001 more incidental fly deaths, but spared 1 million humans and massively mitigated all those other things I just talked about. Most vegans aren't going to opt for the grass-fed cow just because
Vegan gains, for example, is a perfect argument of someone who says, oh, if it's an old person and a young animal, I would save the young animal because he has more years to live. What an absolute psychopath.
more non-human animals would die. And that's not even considering the results of tipping points that could occur via climate change.
And you guys apparently also, you prefer to eat avocados rather than butter, for example, and you don't care about the human deaths. Like,
tipping points are basically sudden
kill 1,000 animals. If you can save one person, you're more moral.
and or large changes that occur in a climate system and which are often irreversible. Once something like this happens, we're not talking about a little more death and hardship. We're talking about massive changes. And crucially, my climate change topic will just be reversed by reducing
veganism.
I just wanted
Again, veganism causes more harm than these guys.
to note that this is something that decidedly cannot be absent from our moral considerations involving humans and non-human animals. All right, so let's get more contentious. This group of reasons I'm calling the asymmetry of victims. So remember what I said earlier, I don't myself necessarily hold all the positions presented here. All right, so imagine we've got two farming methods for growing lentils. Using the first method, one housefly will die a year. Using the second, one pig will die a year. Do you have a preference as to which farming method is used? My guess would be that most people do. So let's go through
We've gone down to the absurds.
for some reasons why they might. Also, the reason I'm using this example is because it's often implied that a large number of these crop deaths are insect deaths from pesticides, which
True.
apparently aren't used in grass-fed agriculture. But
Half and half.
that's for a future video. All right, reason one, life.
Like, if you just, insects will die. You have to protect your animals anyway.
Span.
Less, though, because you don't have to actually spread pesticides over hectares of land.
A housefly lives 50 to 30 days, whereas a pig can live.
That's what I said. Like, for them, it's like it's not about the animal. It's about how many years they have left. Like, Vegan Gain said this clear as mud. If he has to choose between an animal or a person, he will evaluate his decision, not because one is a person and the other one is an animal, but because, let's see how many years they probably have left. And he would save the animal if it's a young animal rather than a human who would live less than the animal. Absolutely mental.
Years. If you think there's moral relevance to the amount of life you rob from someone, then this is going to factor into your decision. And if you want to
these people are
test if
absolute
this is something you
psychopaths.
care about, imagine someone killing a 15-year-old human versus a 95-year-old human. Does one of these seem worse, or do they feel the same? 2, chance of sentience.
What an idiot.
Let's say the pig and fly had the same amount of life to live. Is there anything else that would tip us towards one method or
There's this cool question, which is, which one would you kill, your mother or your fiance, right? It's a stupid, without an answer. It's a stupid question without an answer. You don't kill any of them. Like, would you feel better about one or the other? It doesn't matter how you feel about it. It matters what happened.
the other? Well, chance of sentience seems like another potential candidate. If I think there's a 99% chance that pigs are sentient, but only a 50% chance that flies are sentient, then it seems to make sense to prefer the method that kills the fly, since the method has a higher probability of.
This kind of argument would also justify killing a common person rather than an animal. Like, we're going to the absurd. Like, these guys are mental.
Not actually hurting someone. 3. Depth of experience. Now I know this is the most contentious, but we'll go over it anyway since it is something that comes up. You might think it's reasonable to conclude that given the vast difference in the size and complexity of different nervous systems, that some individuals have experiences that are deeper or more pronounced than others. You might also think that makes those experiences more morally relevant. If you do, this is going to be yet another factor in favor of choosing one method over another. Note, to actually investigate this question with the appropriate amount of rigor would take a much longer video. I'm just flagging it as a concern I sometimes hear. Also note that the point of these considerations is not to say it's okay to kill flies. It's to give a tool for comparing and evaluating situations in which individuals will die.
But this would then justify eating sea creatures such as bivalves who have no brain, no nervous system, nothing, rather than bees, for example. And then veganism would be wrong because you guys use bees to plant your crops. And you're killing a bunch of insects and other animals instead of eating seafood that has no brain or nervous system or no experiences and probably less years to live.
No matter what. Alright, and the final reason for today is that this strategy is not scalable. Even when we imagine incredibly idealized and impossible scenarios, as they did in the 2017 report entitled Grazed and Confused, where we literally convert all grassland to accommodate grazing cows and assume some of the highest productivity imaginable, this would still only supply us with about 1,000 daily calories per person on Earth.
Yeah, but you don't have to do it. You can have both. You can have both plants and animals. You don't have to just have animals.
Not even half the amount of calories we need.
So,
in fact, only about a third of our
is.
average daily requirements, assuming some food losses and waste. Not to mention, as they note, this would be...
I've read these Crazy and Confused documents. I don't know if I believe their assessments, but I didn't study it thoroughly, so I cannot refute it either.
Logistically unfeasible. Plus, as already noted, pretty terrible for the environment. And of course, we're also not factoring in all the health-related externalities of eating that much meat and cheese.
It's not bad for you.
Alright, you say, but even if it's not fully scalable, there's some amount of grass-fed...
You see the jab? Oh, it's bad for the environment? You didn't prove that. And it's bad for your health. It's not proven either. Like, crazy.
Cows that can be sustained with more realistic estimations.
The best populations in the world, the ones that live the most, are the ones that eat animal products, such as seafood and eggs. Okay, let's go.
And so we should find that amount and just eat them, since it'll cause less deaths. While using the grazed and
Okay, let's go.
Confused report, let's see what that would look like with more realistic figures. If we used all grasslands on Earth to raise grass-fed ruminants and employ...
I think the video is over because he's not going to do any more arguments. The scalability is not an argument since you can have both. You can have both plants and animals. Me personally, I think one of the best diets you can have is one that is full of vegetables and meat, almost like a 2-to-1 kind of deal, vegetables to meat. Whatever you have left from the vegetables, use it for biofuel. Whatever you have left from there, use it for animals, and try to reach a sort of balance. Easy, no? But no, for vegans, it's always 8 or 80. There's no middle ground.
To anywhere from 1/3 to 1/9 of what it is now. So, let's take the low-end estimate of 7 grams of animal protein per...
Guys, I'm going to skip this part because it's ridiculous. He's trying to argue that, I don't know, scalability. Like, that doesn't matter. We're talking about if you should eat meat or not. Yes, you should. Do some people eat too much meat? Yeah, I agree.
Try and kill me, I'm not gonna buy anything with a plan.
In other words, we're going to be well over our allotted 7 grams per day. So it doesn't make sense for vegans to add to that number when they're already willing and happy to avoid eating animals.
So, vegans don't adhere to meat because you already consume too much. Unproven claim, but okay.
Think of it like this. If you've got one person who's eating 21 grams per day, already half of what we eat in rich countries, you need at least 2 vegans eating no animal protein at all to bring that average back down to our desired 7 grams.
Okay, this whole argument is based on something, I don't know. Interestingly enough, at least, we don't see that in the developed worlds that eat the most meats, we don't see scarcity of meats. So I'm not really sure where they're pulling these numbers from. I have to restudy. I have to check out
per day.
the
Or
study.
let's ratchet it up. For every stubborn person who would want eating none. I know some of you are going to be saying, hey, that says protein supply, not protein consumption. And yes, that is true. Calorie and protein supply don't track consumption exactly. Instead, calorie supply measures the amount of calories available for consumption at the final stage of the supply chain, the retail or distribution level. This means actual consumption of calories will be calorie supply minus any consumer waste that occurs after retail. Actual consumption is therefore lower than calorie supply. But both the 7 grams and the 50 grams are measured here in protein supply, not consumption. And so we're just assuming the waste that occurs would be roughly proportional. Now, knowing the goal is to eventually...
I don't think this is a good argument. Basically saying that, no, vegans are doing a good thing for the omnivores because omnivores eat too much meat. Therefore, the vegans compensate because otherwise, if everyone ate as much meat as the omnivores, there wouldn't be enough meat for everyone. But that's a lot of assumptions, and you're basing your reasoning out of one study that is quite vegan prone. I'll have to take a look at it.
eliminate animal farming altogether in favor of low crop death farming methods like vertical and this is in the rosiest of scenarios from the grass and the doctrine of double effect. We've also got the problem of local max.
Okay, guys, I think that's it. This video is long enough. I'm not gonna go into, my god, happy slave corn. I don't even want to know. Sorry guys, that's it. I'm done. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked it, let me know. I'm gonna go back to work tomorrow, so I don't know when it's gonna be the next time I'm gonna be able to make videos. But if you do enjoy this one, just let me know. Thank you very much. I'll see you soon.